Okay, so let's get started. Manufacturing is also a bit of a negotiation process between suppliers and producers and clients and such. And in this case, the production of this afternoon was also a bit of a negotiation process. So Max came up to me, and we negotiated a bit that he's got some ideas that he wants to pitch to all of you. And so we traded a bit. So he's going to do some conclusion at the end of the day. That he's going to make extremely concise. So he traded that time for the time he's got now to pitch some views. So if you think I'm giving him a bit leeway in terms of time, well, one is he's in charge, so that's part of the answer. The other one we traded. So you all know Max, head of unit for complex systems and advanced computing within DG Connect, organizer responsible for everything for today with his team. So Max, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, well, we have now heard what we have achieved. If I refer back to 1 year ago in Berlin, we were still a bit shy on showing results because we didn't have final results. We had some first ideas that an experiment would be successful, but we didn't really know. So I think the morning the examples have spoken for themselves. We have seen results, we have seen business benefits, the companies in the presentations, the companies in the brochure that we have done have shown, and that was only a snapshot, obviously, that were 7, 10, 15 examples. There are more. Some are more successful, some it's more hidden. You don't see it as explicit with like saying new people employed or business benefits in terms of revenues or so. In some other cases it's more hidden, in some others it takes longer. But we have seen there is success. So we have in a way, I think, taken the first steps towards showing that this kind of ecosystem works. So as we have indication this works, we have to think about, do we just continue as we do now, or do we want to go further? So I would like to share with you today, now take a snapshot again, and maybe repeat a couple of messages, but put them in one slide or so. And then I would like to see how we can go in the future and how we can, let's say, organically grow this ecosystem that we have created here, and that we see, where we see a lot of fragmented initiatives all across Europe come up, like Industry 4.0, like Smart Industry, Production 2030, Usine du Futur, or the new approach now that we have, that was announced this week by the French government, high-value manufacturing. I have to be fair here, try not to forget anybody. And the European initiatives we have, like Factories of the Future, like what we have in I4MS. And there's this landscape coming up, and we have to see how we position ourselves. And I would like to share with you some ideas of what we have in mind. But before I do that, let me just get this into political context. I mean, we have not only succeeded in I4MS, for example, to show that it works, but we have also raised the level of political attention here. So we have tried to develop for the new Commission a strategy on which we call digitizing industry. We did not want to use any term of the member state, so we created a new one because we didn't want to favor a member state. Imagine I would have used the word Industry 4.0. I, as a German, would directly have had a problem. So let's use another one, digitizing industry. We see that digitizing industry strategy that we are at the moment developing, we see that complementary in this yin-yang with a strong digital sector. You know, we have all these ICT PPPs, public-private partnerships in different areas, like Excel in microelectronics towards embedded systems, photonics, robotics, you know, some of the colleagues are here. Cybersecurity, there will be a new one likely coming, big data. That's more technology pushed. Digitizing industry now is on the uptake of technologies all across. Khalil has given you a lot of ideas this morning, so it's not for me to repeat that now. I just wanted to put up this one slide and say this initiative has 4 pillars. And one of the pillars is we want that every SME, every mid-cap in Europe has access to the digital technologies, to the competences to go through the digital transformation it has to go through to stay competitive or to become more competitive. Yeah, so, and I4MS is one of the key building blocks of that pillar of Commissioner Oettinger's strategy, which he announced in Hanover at the Hanover Fair, and I gave the reference here, so if you want, you can go into it. Now, I would just like to give you a couple of, a summary on how I see I4MS standing at the moment, and I just get some numbers here. Now, I've tried to put I4MS on one slide to summarize what it is. So the first corner says basically what are we trying to do? We try to cross the valley of death. And that means for suppliers, we want that they can go from prototype towards products, towards services. We want to support them in that. Many die in this valley of death, or crossing the chasm, as it is sometimes called in literature. We also want to help users. You have seen examples today on profiting first from advanced ICT technologies, all kinds of technologies, to be more competitive on their market. So that's our objective. We have organized that, you see that in the left corner, in these Marguerite-type projects where we have networks of competence centers with all kinds of competences across Europe networked, and where we carry out, and that are the leaves of the Marguerites, where we carry out experiments. Cross-value chain experiments, you have seen many examples of them, users, suppliers, and so on. Most of these competence centers are in more developed regions in Europe, where there are all the competences available, I would say. And also many of the partners of the experiments are in those regions, but they are also elsewhere. So if I take that all together and look at the map on the right-hand side, we now have how many centers? About, 40 plus 30. The plus always means phase 1. Is the first one, and phase 2 is what we are now funding and what we are currently contracting. So projects to start in October. So we have now started our phase 2. We have selected 4 more of these Marguerite-type projects, 2 in the area of robotics, 1 in the area of simulation modeling, and now new analytics in that one. So more also towards data analytics, smart data, and a 4th one on the adoption of cyber-physical systems, of Internet of Things technologies in manufacturing on the shop floor and with the supply chain. Yeah, so that is where we think we have to move. So we have selected those. We are currently contracting them. They are not a secret anymore in that sense, because it's all out. So we spend another 35 million of that in the next 3 to 4 years on that. We are also supporting 2 support actions who help us to manage this program, to disseminate, to outreach, and so on. We will, from the 140 experiments roughly that we will have with the first phase, we'll have another 80 experiments that we fund on European scale. We are across 22 member states, and I've already said what kind of areas we are addressing. Now I'd like to go a bit further and share a bit with you what is the evolution of this and what we want to do as new ideas. And there I'm really keen to hear your feedback, maybe not today, but over the coming, let's say, 2 weeks. Don't mind, send me an email what you think, or discuss with us, with me, my colleagues, because we try to implement something that makes things happen. So now let me start. In phase 1, what did we do in IMS phase 1? We bootstrapped an ecosystem at a time when nothing was existing yet. So nothing was existing means smart industry didn't exist. Usine du Futur didn't exist. These initiatives did not exist or were just coming up. So there was no money in member states to support an SME adopting simulation technologies. So that's why some of the experiments we had, you saw the one of Pipistrel this morning, for example, where we have actors from one region working together on adopting these kind of technologies. That's fine in this stage. But in future, let's see, we have member states, we have regions who invest. Should we in future invest in experiments that happen locally around one center in the same region? I would put that in question. So we are beyond the startup phase. So what are we doing now? We are organically growing the I4MS ecosystem with this new funding, but we would like to see more. So what does organically growing mean for me? So let's distinguish between the highly developed regions, where we have a digitizing industry initiative, where we have nodes of I4MS. Let's first think what we want to do there. I think we need to know more what is happening there. When you look at the picture of Europe on the right-hand side, we in January had a meeting of 25 initiatives, national or regional level. There are more, but I think we had the most important ones around the table. And we asked them, what should we do on a European scale? That went into Oettinger's strategy, obviously. But now we need more. I think we need kind of an interactive catalog, what experiences, what competences are available in Europe, and see that everybody has access to that so that we can broker, that we can get a marketplace for these competences across Europe. Why should a user in the Netherlands only work with a Dutch supplier together? Or why should we have a demonstration that something works in a particular area by Germans, for Germans in Germany? That doesn't make any sense, because there could be others who profit from that as well. And we need to grow this market. So we would like to reinforce the links to the national and regional initiatives. And we would like to put the European money there where we need it. So when it comes to experiments, for example, we as a research and innovation program, we need to fund highly innovative experiments. I mean, we don't want to compete on the market, so we have to be pre-competitive. So they are highly innovative. But highly innovative for me means now we need to look, where is the European added value? And the European added value comes from looking across the borders. Yeah, that's where Europe comes in, because in a region, in the Baden-Württemberg region, an actor from the same region, they can use Baden-Württemberg money to do it. So we need to look across that. Now, when I look at the field labs in the Netherlands, for example, the one that's focusing on harvesting, I don't know whether it was tulips or tomatoes, I don't remember exactly, but there could be users who try to harvest something in somewhere else in Europe, and maybe using those technologies may have a new step of innovation in that. Why should they not work together? Neither the Dutch nor the program in another region could fund that, because it's locally, they would never pay for these partners elsewhere. So for us, here we can build the glue, and we can help, and we can make sure that the marketplace is there, and they can. So that, I think, is important that happens, and for that we need this catalog or database, or maybe not that static, I don't know the right word for it, of what is going on, so that everybody has access to these competences, and also to create the kind of marketplace. Why should actors in that export their competence? What interest do they have? I heard recently in Germany that the German suppliers who are supplying the world, as they say, with the manufacturing equipment of the future, they have clearly an interest to also provide that in other regions in Europe where we have a smart specialization, which is not ICT, which may be textile or food or whatever, but where we need that, and where we have a desert in terms of ICT competences. So we have to create this marketplace. And that's where my second point comes in. How do we get the less developed regions in terms of high-tech involved? So, and that are those where we may have a certain strength, industrial strength or agricultural strength or whatever strength, but we have no competences on ICT. So for that I would like, and I have one slide on that, that's my last slide then, we would like to launch a mentoring and sponsorship program for regional nodes, for new innovation hubs in other regions, and I would say with a focus on the less developed regions, including, for example, Eastern Europe. And there, obviously, we have to think about what can a framework program for research and innovation support, and what is cohesion. Because obviously, we need to be innovative. So we cannot put a lot of money at cohesion. So for cohesion, other funds, the structural funds, for example, are responsible, or investment funds, innovation vouchers, we have other means, but that's where we are not responsible. Nevertheless, if we say we have these funds for this and these for this, and we don't build the bridge, it will never happen. So my idea here would be we have to make it happen. And how do you make it happen? I think we should put a bit of sugar on the table for those to see how they can develop that, help them, and get there. And that's why we would like to set up some kind of mentoring program, and I tell you in a second what I mean by that. Now, last not least, some issues come up, and we have discussed it, or Khalil has already raised it this morning. It's also on the regulatory aspects, in terms of regulation, in terms of, like when you see liability for autonomous systems, be it drones, be it autonomous cars, be it robots, or be it an ICT system buying something on a marketplace, liability becomes an issue. In some of them, autonomous cars, robots, security robots are operating in a cage nowadays, and national legislation doesn't allow them to go out of the cage. And we definitely don't want 28 national legislation that tells us how they can go out of the cage. We want one. So there is work necessary, and that may even be necessary on an international scale. So when there is discussion on security, on these kind of topics in international scale, we would like to bring it up, for example, at the forum that we are co-organizing. I mean, Marco Teisch is the organizer. He's here in the room of that one, of the World Manufacturing Forum. We would like to bring this political agenda also up to fora like the World Manufacturing Forum. So that's what we have to do. So that's a bit our vision. We work on that. So World Manufacturing Forum, clear, working with the other initiatives in Europe and trying to more go towards building the glue. And now the third one, the mentoring and sponsorship program for new innovation hubs. So what we are trying with these second phase projects, some of them have foreseen budget for it, some of them have not yet foreseen budget for it. I'm talking about a minimal amount of budget for this to bootstrap something and to then create it and organically grow it. We would like to see something like 25 innovation hubs to be created within a year from now in non-I4MS regions, in less developed regions, in Eastern European region. And I suggest we all, across these projects, share this in terms of budgeting, and we don't need a lot for it, so it's not a big thing. It's kind of an outreach activity, so it's part of the kind of dissemination that we do. And a lot of projects several of the projects have foreseen that in phase 2. Others we may have to discuss with, and we will do that soon. The mechanism for me would be, if we really want to give a message to less developed regions who get money also from the structural funds, for example, I would not limit it to that, but who could get money from there, we have to have one scheme. If we come with 4 projects, 4 schemes, 2 CSAs, another one, 6 schemes, maybe some of the old projects wanting to join in, another 5 number of schemes, it will never work, because it will be a zoo of things for them. They will never understand. They will do nothing. They will not come back to us. So that will not work. Yeah? So I know it's difficult enough to have a framework program in the Commission that is top-down. You apply for money in Brussels, and you have regional programs where you have to apply for local money. So the only way to do it is to do it centrally and to do it all the same way. So my suggestion would be, and we have had first brainstorming with people, would be that we, together with the CSAs, the support action, launch an expression of interest for new innovation hubs in regions, and we promote that via all the channels of the regional channels, in the Committee of Regions, in the more local things, in the meeting of the research, the RTOs across Europe who also come from these countries. In all kinds of meetings, we promote that. We open that for, let's say, 3-4 months towards the end of the year. And then we select from this list and associate with subcontracts, simple subcontracts, associate them to a mentor node in our current initiative. So the mentor node would have the responsibility to help them in terms of competences discussed, but also to give them something like 30 to 50,000 euros each of these centers in order to do something to do this kind of, I call it cohesion, because we give just a startup for starting this cohesion. So what we have in mind is like saying that every large project does 5 of these mentoring and sponsorship programs, so that we get in total 4 plus, or maybe and the CSAs maybe as well. We have to discuss that and see how we get that going, so that in the first half of 2016 we get these 25-30 nodes in less developed regions to do the following. And there I have 4 points. I think what they have to do is they have to investigate what the digital needs are in their regional smart specialization strategy. They all have a smart specialization plan in the structural funds program. So they have to see what are their digital needs. Second, they have to link these needs to what is available in I4MS projects and alike. I'm happy to open it to Smart Everything Everywhere, to the Photonics, to Accord, and so on. And then I think to get them really understanding that, I think it's necessary that they carry out on a relatively high level a couple of feasibility studies with some of their local enterprises to see what could that bring. So they should find out, do a feasibility study for a best practice experiment linked to the large number of activities we have in I4MS. And last not least, they should link also to their local funding bodies. And with that, then I would hope that we could broaden this ecosystem. We may get a couple of proposals in our open calls from these regions, but they may also get be able to raise some regional money to link and to learn from the experience we have had on a European scale. Now, if I conclude now, just on I4MS 1, what we have achieved so far is we have a very strong industrial participation. I just want to raise some numbers here. 275 of the 330 contractors are industrial. So that's 275 out of 330, that's a lot. 75% of them are SMEs and mid-caps. I put that always together because when it comes to users, whether a user has 300 or 1,000 employees in textile or in food, they have the same problem in terms of adopting digital technology. So to really take the rigorous limit of 300 or so from the formal definition doesn't make too much sense. And what is also important is out of the 210 SMEs we have in I4MS, 120 are new to the program, have never been in the program. So we really see that this is not incestuous. We are not just giving it to our friends that we all know, but we get really new actors involved. Well, and with this, I would like to conclude and maybe raise these ideas that I have for further discussion even in the panel now or at a later stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Now, you'll need some time to have it soak in, so you get some time to reflect on what Max said and then get back to it on the panel, although he's being a bit easy on that. In the panel, he's going to be sitting here, and his colleague's going to be sitting up there, so he's just hiding from the gunfire. Final presentation before the panel. Let me just turn it over. Joep Brouwers, Vice Director of Brainport Development from the Netherlands, and giving up his perspective on the European dimension of the regions. So, Joep, floor is yours.
Yeah, just search for my presentation. You know where it is?
Should be the next one, should be this one.
It is. Thank you. For those who don't know that, Brainport Development is an economic development agency, and we are strongly connected to the Vanguard initiative. I'm looking for F5 or...
It's a French keyword.
Yeah. Thank you. And we are strongly committed to the Vanguard initiative, and I'm going to tell you a bit about this initiative because we believe this Vanguard initiative could add value to I4MS and vice versa in a way. The Vanguard initiative is a political initiative. It's an initiative by the region, initiated by the Flemish Minister-President, Chris Peters, the former Minister-President, 1.5 years ago. And it entered with 10 regions that set our strategies of smart specializations, which the European Commission has asked us for. We want to lead them in a more impactful way to the future than maybe was intended from the European Commission. We want to really, as a bottom-up initiative, take the lead in making more impact on this. And within 1.5 years' time, this number of 10 extended to 26 regions participating at the moment. And although it is a political initiative, it wants to be a hands-on, bottom-up initiative. It's about economic strength and economic development. So it should be led by industries, by knowledge institutes, and not on the first place by governments. And that is why the regions, the 26 regions committed to this initiative, has developed a model in which they try to make this work. And I'm going to tell you first a bit about how they try to operate this model and how they try to work together, and then in what way it could be linked to the I4MS program. In a way, this is about the model they think of. It's an ecosystem model in which, on an operational and regional level, what we in the Brainport region call the triple helix, the governments, the industries, and knowledge institutes working together, connected also to the EU institutions, of course, and involving all the actors in this innovative ecosystem, working up to pilots. Pilots are the heart of the way the Vanguard initiative wants to work. And what kind of pilots can you imagine? Well, of course, starting from those smart specialization strategies, you can believe they are looking up on the way the European Commission likes to see this. And that's why in this Vanguard initiative, they started by a program and pilots from advanced manufacturing. And within a short notice of time, the initiative started 1.5 years ago, they already started 3 advanced manufacturing pilots in last summer. I'm not going to tell you in detail about those projects because I will go way out over my 10 minutes, but to give you some idea, it's about efficient and sustainable manufacturing, led always by several regions. It's not a pilot in one region, it's also a combination of several regions, in this case, Lombard and Catalonia. The other pilot is about high performance production through 3D printing by Flanders and the south of the Netherlands. You know, the Brainport-Eindhoven region is a high-tech region, and we are very, very, very interested in 3D printing because we believe this will have an enormous impact on the way we manufacture in the future. The third one, it's about energy applications led by Scotland and the Basque Country. So in combinations of regions and topics, we try to drive these strategies forward. And it has such an enormous impact that this summer 2 new pilot initiatives will be launched. It's about nanomaterials and about bio-based economy. And the way it works is a way of, and I'm going to show you a slide on this, by 4 steps leading at the end to commercialization, of course. And this is a part of what we think we might strongly add to I4MS. It's not an R&D program. It's, of course, it goes up to the higher level of TLRs. It's about commercialization. But first, of course, you should learn from each other, identify what are the lead regions on a topic, what would be the mapping outcomes, who could be the lead actors on a topic and in a pilot, and then connect them. And matching in this way the regions work together can be very effective also in a future perspective, because this mapping is not just for the pilots, it's a mapping that can be used also in a further approach years ahead in working together. It's been the success of many participations in European projects and regions that the networks that are built will last for many, many years. And of course, demonstration is very important. At this moment, in the city of Eindhoven, there is a 3D printing company that really wants to evolve a 3D manufacturing printer. Just a printer for the manufacturing industries. And this could be enormous, well demonstrated for many other industries in Europe and way beyond, because 3D printing, well, has many, many opportunities. But the last step, which is, of course, is very important, is then how to launch new ventures, startups, new value chains. And many of the regions which are active in this Vanguard initiative has worked upon these startup systems already for many years. And it's getting an impulse because everybody knows for many jobs and many new business, the future is within startups and new ventures as well. This is the way, as an example, in this 3D printing networking demonstration and production facility is working. Started at the level of the existing technology, diffuse good practice at this moment, and try to accelerate new value change and scale up this demonstrator. One of the challenges, I think, also the projects I heard of today, how do you scale them? Because they can be very successful, but how can you scale this technology, this acquired knowledge you have, so that many, many more companies and industries can make use of it? This is a big challenge, and I think this model we are trying to work out also in practice could be of use of that. The next step could be in this N+1 stage is develop an interconnected network of demonstrators. And I think here's a match with the ambitions of I4MS as well. Later on, and you also have to look a bit further, and like Max did in his previous speech, what will be the ahead? And that ahead will be, of course, also very new business models. And you should open up your mind to think about those very, very sometimes disruptive business models in the future. In 3D printing, people are talking about urban manufacturing. Some people said, well, domesticated manufacturing. Why can't you make the things you like at home? And could 3D printing facilitate that or not? Well, I think it's going to be the only future of 3D printing, but in some aspects it could be part of future life, of course. Funding, also in the way we fund these new initiatives, I think programs like I4MS and the Vanguard initiative could match and create more synergy. What the Vanguard initiative very could do is match fundings on different levels, and I put some on the slide behind me, which on a regional level, where we always believe the organization strength is very strong, you could match these different skilled fundings on a more organic way of doing, and we'd like to bring this in an initiative as well. At the moment, there are no formal connections today between Vanguard and the I4MS, but we believe, and I must say, it was the first time I was in one of your meetings today, and it underlined the impression I had before that there's a lot of opportunities to bring these things together, to see whether the platform of Vanguard can strengthen the possibilities and the enormous ambitions of I4MS. I got my slides, will be available, and there's more slides, and I've shown you this. For more detailed information, you can have a look at the slides as well. Thank you very much.
So you can stay up here because you're in the panel as well. Yep. Can I invite all of the panelists up here? We've got Anne-Marie Sassen, she's the Deputy Head of Unit, Complex Systems and Advanced Computing. So she's Max's deputy, and he's going to ask her to answer all of your questions. Joep Brouwers, who's up there from the previous presentation. Christine Oyon from the Society for the Promotion of Industry. Zeiko Pazin from EFRA. Paul Peters from Agoria. And Silvio Della Mazza, who you've met earlier this morning.
I am Gigi Petrali from Whirlpool Europe. And my question is, how can large companies, as the one I belong to, can help small and medium enterprises in this growing of competencies, of digitalization, and in, let's say, achieving a way of operating of tomorrow in which we can not simply be supplier and customers, but really cooperating together.
Thank you. And there's the beer. So who feels up the challenge to take up this first question? Joep.
I always prefer the easy questions. There's so much large corporates could do in this field. They have a lot of technology. They have a lot of knowledge. Just open it up and step in products with SMEs. I know it's more a mental shift sometimes has to be made, but I believe that corporates could add so much to SMEs, join them in a project or ask them to join their project. But as you know, a lot of the R&D projects in Europe are dominated sometimes by corporates. But why don't you invite SMEs and say, come up and help us? Otherwise, you can help them bring things to the market if you have new developments. So I think just talk to the SMEs, invite them in your offices, sit around the table. How can we help you? And I think it's a mutual benefit. It won't harm your business a thing. I think it will strengthen the business of corporates as well.
Now, Paul, I know you have an opinion on this as well. And you haven't spoken yet today, so I'm going to invite you to answer this question as well.
Yeah, it's not an easy one, because I myself, I've worked 20 years for a corporate factory, and I'm now dealing especially with SMEs. There is a different culture, so we have to take that into account. And I would say, if you as a large company employee would like to start up some businesses, I would like to advise you to gather around you the, let's me call it, the most entrepreneurial colleagues you have, the one with the ideas able to really get them through the layers of a corporate organization, because most of the times the SME leaders, they are very, very ambitious, fast and entrepreneurial, and there has to be a match, because if there's no match from the beginning, I'm afraid that success will be far ahead.
Follow-up questions? Anyone? I do have another beer. And just for those, this one is especially, it's a Twisted Spire Vibrant Blonde. And it's fruity, honey, and floral with a sharp, zesty grapefruit flavor and dry, and it's a blonde ale of 3.6%. Yes, a man after my heart.
Hi, I'm a student from Finland, and I'm currently doing my internship here in Brussels. I was just wondering, because a lot of the students are starting the small SMEs after their studies, how to ensure that the digital transformation in manufacturing goes to the small SMEs that are just starting up from the students.
Okay, thank you. Why does it not surprise me that a Finn's going for the beer? What about you answer that from an EFRA perspective?
Well, to be honest, I didn't grasp the question 100%, but I related to it. I can give you an answer which goes in this direction. I mean, if there is an opportunity for SMEs, I think it's in this initiative or in this domain that is covered here today. Because I mean, you are from Finland. You have these examples where you have good companies created by students in the gaming industry. It's a good market. You simulate things. And the Finns are very good in it. And what's now happening is that there's a trend, that there's a shift, because there's, beside the gaming industry, another industry which is bloody rich. It's the manufacturing industry. So what we see now is that those companies, or those ex-students who created startups and who did all these apps, that they also find manufacturers as customers, because they want simulation. They want also creativity, because it's a competition, and with competition, new ideas come up in the market. So I think, I think especially you are doing fine if you're from Finland, especially in this sector. So if there is a domain, it's this robotics, simulation. It's what we covered here today.
Anne-Marie?
Yeah, I would like just to add that this morning, I think, I'm not sure, we saw an example of that with a Dutch company from Delft, and they were able to do simulations of the electricity system of an airplane. It only cost 600 euros per run, so no capital investment, just their knowledge, which they have just learned from university, so very fresh and new. And then, of course, opportunities to start a business, like in this case, the funding for I4MS, but there is lots of funding available if you look for it. And I think, yeah, indeed, that startup, something like that, with your ideas that you've learned, could be something very useful.
And Christina, you're from we have a background with a Society for the Promotion of Industry. I actually didn't know that a society like that existed. But wouldn't you also say that this day and age, there is no better time to start an industrial company than today, given the possibilities that exist and almost say the small amount of capital expenditure that is needed to start something if you have an idea. But given that context, first of all, do you agree with that? And secondly, these initiatives, such as I4MS and such as related initiatives in other DGs, do they help that? Are they useful? Is what Max is planning useful?
Well, yes, I think these kind of initiatives could be very useful if we are able to help these companies to get the knowledge that these things are going on and to have this, as you have presented, these competence centers close to these companies that could, I think that could be very useful. But also, I had an idea that was going around my head because of the questions before, and it's that we talk about SMEs as one category, and I think that the size is important, but it's also very important the technology intensity of the companies. So you may have small companies, but very innovative and that are working or are very aware of improving the technological intensity in their companies that could be or could be as pivotal or drivers as large companies. And on the other hand, you can have large companies that are not supporting these innovative activities, and they are not as useful for these kind of things as these, I would say, technology active companies, regardless of the size of them. At least this is our experience in the Basque Country.
But actually, your neighbor, Paul, next to you, has got some experience in his past employer, where a big company, in this case a big technology company, actually almost embraced smaller companies to help them experiment with things. Paul, why did that work?
Why did that work?
And that was Philips, by the way.
There was a need. There was a financial need to do it. So that helps to get, let's say, people from Philips in that case, also working for other companies rather than just firing them. That was the need. So people were really engaged to open up the site of production to small and medium enterprises, where Philips management at that time said, and that was a bold statement, SMEs which are coming to us, they get full access to all equipment and test equipment we have. That is not something you typically see happening in a corporate factory where you have a lot of rules and things to apply to. So, but it worked, and the SMEs which are there now, they can freely come into the Philips premises. They can use the test equipment. They can speak to all people concerned about knowledge, about process knowledge, about automation knowledge. Not for free. There are fees agreed to. It's a very transparent system. What the use of a certain equipment cost. But it's all there, and that is, I think, a good example of what could work.
Okay, thank you. Hi, who are you?
My name is Ralph.
Okay, and where are you from?
I'm working for the representation of North Rhine-Westphalia. It's a German federal state, and for their Brussels representation.
Great. Okay, so hold this mic. What I have a worry about is we've got all these great initiatives, and what Max did present is, yes, we get a high number of SMEs we're reaching that are not the usual suspect. That's good. But that's still a small number if you look at the amount of SMEs in Europe. You're from a region. How do we get to more SMEs in that region? This morning we had the funny example of the modeling that was used for the beer, the beer brewing, which can actually be used, the same concept, for a cheese manufacturer or whatever manufacturer you have in North Rhine-Westphalia. How do we get to them? What does the Commission need to do?
I mean, that's the reason why I'm here, because I think we are could be multipliers for this, what we learn here. So for us, or for me, it's important to know, for example, from the Commission, you mentioned the 4 pillars of this strategy. So what is the connection between the first pillar of getting the access and the second with the platforming? I learned about sectoral platforming. So what's the interconnections of the sectoral platforms? And you mentioned for the access to the digital innovation, regional innovation hubs, that should be one-stop shops. So how should all the companies know which are their one-stop shop, and should they pay for that, or how is the business model of these competence centers?
Now, I'm going to ask Sylvia to answer that question in a minute, but what do you think should be the answer to that?
As I mentioned, I think our role here for our region, representing them in Brussels, is to talk to the commissions and to gain all these informations, and then bring them back to my region, what they can do. And for example, what they can learn from other regions and from other companies in other regions. So one thing, of course, it's funding, but the other thing is just getting some new ideas, getting inspired from other SMEs and learning from each other. And therefore, from my perspective, this getting connected is the most important thing of this.
You seem to be agreeing with him. Okay. How should he do that?
No, it's very simple. My company isn't from North Rhine-Westphalia.
Yeah. It's the German section here, Max.
So, and what I may contribute is that our company was, for us, it was the first time to participate in such a funding program. Yeah. And it was and it is a great experience for us. And yes, it had also some consequences, some indirect, more or less indirect consequences to our company. So there's a complete changed understanding for new technologies, or in our example, for cloud technologies.
So it was the first time for you. How did you find out about it?
Yeah, how we find out? Yes, we are, the history is we were more or less invited to this.
By not the region or by the Commission?
No, not by the region, not by the Commission, by some of the founders of our project, by some people who just had the idea to make a proposal on cloud computing.
And they had the network, and these people knew about it.
They got a network, and they searched for a right marketing company, and they looked for a region also where the company is located, where we got a lot of experience in B2B business and also in technology transfer. Yes, and that was the reason, because we are now happy to have this experience, and we like to transport this experience also to other small and medium companies in Europe. That's
okay.
Okay,
thank you. But Sylvia, isn't that too incidental? So how do we use the regions? And this networking is great, but I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy.
I might have forget some of the questions that the guy have started because, you know, my memory is not that good. But some of the facts that he highlighted were how do you spot the hubs, how do you spot the competence centers, how they're chosen, etc., right? So, so the first competence centers that you have seen today in different presentations, in mine, in Max's as well, those are the ones who started in the 7 initial projects from the initiative. So you had there already around 40 competence centers with different skills. We have those that are competent on HPC, working on the cloud projects, others on laser. So we have a variety of skills and a variety of geographical locations. So new competence centers are coming through the new projects. But as Max have said, there will be other opportunities that we didn't have in the past to include other competence centers through other means, not only by participating in the projects from the beginning of the proposal preparation. Okay, so that will be one way that need also to be, let's say, design how this is going to exactly to be done, what is the procedure that the competence centers will have to follow, etc. Another question that I think you've asked is what is maybe the sustainability of these competence centers' role in the future. So the aim here, as you've seen, the second target will be replication, okay? So replication or copying again the success stories that have happened in the beginning of the projects could happen in different ways. One of them could be, of course, that the SMEs need some kind of skill, some kind of service, or some kind of, I don't know, capabilities that they're not able to obtain, and they want to get those even if don't get funding, because those capabilities are going to make them go forward. I mean, so there's a need and there's a reason for paying for that. And there are some of the projects who are already framing that, let's say, portal in a marketplace that will link those different actors in the chain and will enable SMEs to find easy what kind of competence centers have worked in the past in the region or not in the region, working on similar applications that are quite similar to theirs, and they think, okay, this application has been already used by these competence center, that SME, they might understand better what is my need. So that is...
Okay, but still, there's still the question of how do we take the incidental nature out of it, or the I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy nature.
Okay, that's a problem with European projects, I guess, proposals. Because before we were talking about how you get involved in a proposal. I mean, the I4MS started 7 projects proposals. So that was the very beginning of the initiative. That has been evolving, and other different ways of getting involved in I4MS.
But this whole mentoring idea of Max, is it even going to work?
Sorry?
Is this whole mentoring and coaching idea for outreach that Max has got, isn't that a silly idea then?
No, because that's complementing other different tasks that we have been performing in I4MS.
Okay,
so
but
for going to that direction, you needed to have some basis of projects that were running already. And for those, you need proposals to be submitted. And for that, you need to have a network or friends or someone to let you be invited and be in a consortium.
Okay, but so we're going to pass down the mic to all of you. And you've got 2 concrete, non-fluffy ideas that you are going to give Max, who's going to write it down, of things to do to reach out and to get to more SMEs anywhere in Europe. Tangible actions that can be taken on top of what's already been done. And the moment I hear a word that's fluffy, I mean, no drinks for you this afternoon.
Well, I mean, first let's
2 actions.
Well, no. It's also for the understanding, you know. The aim is not to bring every SME in Europe to this initiative, because we have national initiative, regional initiatives. So we have the Factories of the Future, PPP, or the I4MS. It's one initiative in a whole set of many things.
What are we going to do?
What we are going to do? Well, I mean, we should try this out, what Max just suggested, because since 4 years here in Brussels...
No, he's got that. It was his idea, so 2 extra actions. Max already thought of that. Come on.
Okay.
2 actions.
Then get ready. all these IPs should please go out, identify in Poland who is in Poland, Romania, everywhere in Europe, who could be the host of such a digital hub, who is ready to take on the challenge, who is there, and then I think so. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's find in each member state which has an interest the actor who could do this digital.
Okay, that's one, and another one.
The other one.
How do you incentivize them to really work their ass off? Don't worry, you're after Paul.
I pass it on, and then I give you the second point later. Okay.
Paul, 2 tangible actions.
I have one, but Max, maybe an idea which occurs to me is set up a roadshow idea. there are some results, there are good results already. There are regional organizations like Agoria in Belgium who could make sure that a lot of SMEs come together, grasp the needs of the SMEs which we can bring together, and then a roadshow could be done by I4MS to display these results which are connected to the needs which are displayed by the participants.
But Paul, you even missed one that you're doing yourself, is you have this award thing as well.
Yeah, we have the Factory of the Future Award, which it could be connected to such an event, which we are organizing every year in Belgium, which brings together already some 400 or 500 SME leaders. So that could be a good idea. Yeah,
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, next, 2 tangible actions. Max is writing here.
First idea, give them money.
Oh, we're doing that already.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, give them money to buy technology and to implement. So open the activity of adapting technology that has been developed in other projects to these companies by means of grants for the buy of technology and for.
How do we get to different people than the usual suspects or the small crowd or the guy who knows a guy?
Sorry?
How do we get to new SMEs that we're not reaching today?
Give them money.
Yeah, but how do we find them?
If you open a call for proposals with money, they will come.
No, then we've got the usual suspects. These SMEs, the cheese manufacturer in the south of France that's never done a European project, doesn't know how to find it. How do we find them?
We have our SMEs very well identified, I could tell you. If they are not coming to Europe, it's because it's very costly for them to come, because the rate of success in European projects is low, because the cost of the management of the administrative processes for getting return from European projects is very high for SMEs, for small SMEs that don't have time or resources to dedicate to come here, to talk with people, to be part of the networks.
Okay. Another idea?
Give them more money.
Okay. Yes, of course.
I'll just speak up. So I think, I've been doing this for 20 years now and talking to small companies and bringing them in to use modeling and simulation. And in those 20 years, nothing has changed. The only way to bring new people in is to get in your car and go to their industrial estate and their business and talk to them face to face. And it's extremely labor intensive and difficult, but it's the only way to actually bring new people in. They won't come to Brussels, we know that. That's why this model does work. It's regional and pan-European at the same time. And it should be increased in Europe. Europe got it wrong 15 years ago when they stopped doing these things. It's getting it right by doing these things again now.
Bit of a regional dimension of the roadshow that Paul was talking about. Should it then, just a question, should it then have a sectoral focus or a technology focus within that region?
I think it has to have a solving business problems focus. Yeah. I don't particularly care about the technology side of things. The conversation I have with companies, be it in the company or sitting on a plane beside somebody, is always about what they do and what their problems are. And then you think, well, actually, we could help solve them, or you just say we can't.
Okay, but so how do we get the beer brewer together with the cheese manufacturer to get them to exchange ideas? Because apparently there's quite a good connection in where they can benefit from each other's ideas.
Well, that is exactly where the pan-European component of this comes, and it comes from the competence centres knowing each other well, talking to each other, and introducing these people. Okay. The problem we have in the current setup, though, is there's not a huge amount of travel money for the brewer to go and have some cheese with the cheesemaker. But, we can only do our best.
Yeah.
You don't need the brewer to talk to the cheesemaker. You need the tech provider that works with the brewer to talk to the cheesemaker.
Is that the case, though? Anne-Marie, you have a view on that. So thank you. I know that she's got a perspective on that.
Yes, my view is that peers should talk to each other. So when another SME sees that a competitor SME has done something, has improved his process through simulation, then that one SME also thinks, well, I can also do that. and then he becomes interested in doing it. Whereas if it is a technology provider says, well, potentially you could do that and it could save you money, I don't think it's as convincing as when the same type of company, your competitor, when they are doing that. And for instance, what one of the participants in the program told me, the simulation provider, they said, when our competitor simulation providers are doing the same thing, then we know we are successful. Then it's really good. So I think at every level, everybody who has success, yeah, of course you don't want to tell your competitor what your trick is and how you did it, but it's still very important that everybody in their own way spreads the success of a certain technology and what it has brought to them. And then I think that will make others interested. And then if they have seen, it doesn't matter where the funding comes from, whether they can do something regionally or they have a Vanguard example, or that doesn't really matter. But
so let's say
that
funding,
the
let's say
snowball starts somehow by everybody in their own circle, giving success stories somehow, or how they applied it and what it did for them.
Okay, but what are the instruments that you've heard today are best, if funding were not an issue, are the best tangible actions to increase, to reach out to more SMEs, to get that peer-to-peer exchange?
Yeah, so I think the roadshow is very good. And then indeed to maybe to trade organizations, you know, how do you call that? The chambers of commerce, that type of organizations where then there would be some of the people or the success stories are really presented and others can listen to that. Okay. That type of actions I think are very good in addition to trying to set up regional innovation hubs, other regional innovation.
Okay, you've got two actions coming, but first we have a question here from the audience.
Well, I
first introduce who you are.
Yeah, sorry, I'm Tamás Kiss, I'm the coordinator of the Cloud SME project. And I have a comment rather than a question. So I believe that very small companies cannot really be approached individually. That is not working. So we have a few case studies. We approach some companies individually, and those are supported from European budget, and I think that is fine. But in order to spread this, we need those few multipliers who are spreading these words in the different industries. So for example, the breweries and the dairy companies, they cannot be and should not be individually approached. We need technology providers who are providing a solution which is viable for these breweries or for these dairy companies, and who are ready to pay for this without being supported by the EU. They are getting something ready to use. That something which they got ready to use should be commercially viable, not really expensive for a company. So, for example, in case of the brewery case study, we are thinking about something between 20 to 50 euros investment from the company per month. Okay, so that is the amount of money which they should pay for this brewery marketplace, and then they get all the capabilities of enhancing their production schedules. And this should be a kind of ongoing investment, which is probably feasible and affordable for a very, very small company. But these companies should be approached by the multipliers, by their own industry organizations, and by those companies who are actually setting this up. I don't think Brussels going down to every brewery in the country, that will just not work, and they will probably not listen to much.
I'm not sure. Well, Max might like to do that, go down to every brewery. But is this going to work? And what are your two tangible actions for Max?
Well, my tangible actions were ask me how many you want, and I deliver it to you. Give me some money, and then we have a reach out for 8,000 manufacturing companies, most SMEs. If you said, I want 100, I give you 100. But you could also change something about the way you define your project. We have a history with technology innovation projects where we ask that in a project more than one company should be involved. Also in technology innovation, there are a lot of new innovations in technology. Companies like to share, don't mind to share with other companies. We had a wonderful project about moving things in vacuum. This is for a lot of manufacturers very interesting to be able to move something in vacuum. And this is something which was developed with 5 SMEs, not by 1, but 5, and be competitive. Of course, at the end, they will be competitive in the market, but in this field, they wouldn't mind to share this new technology at the same time. I've seen here the example of folding steel. I can imagine that this is something that could have been developed by more than one company, by 3 or 4 or 5, and then would be the effect of the project would be much larger than if only one company would acquire this technology.
Okay, thank you. Comment and a question here? Please introduce you.
Okay, Kees Lanting, Dutchman working in Switzerland for the Swiss Research Organization. I quite agree with the gentleman over there. I think we need to differentiate between small companies and bigger companies. The bigger companies you could approach individually. The smaller companies you cannot. You have to approach them through their sectorial organizations. And yeah, I can understand that a beer brewer will believe that once he's seen that a beer brewer can be successful using a certain technology, that he wants to apply it. But before the cheese farmer accepts this, you have to start a discussion with the cheese farmer, and you have to show him that you can really do something for him. He can believe that it works for the beer brewer, but he will believe it will not work for him till you explain him how.
Thank you. Any further comments, reflections from anyone up there? Those who have a question back here. Okay, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Paul Heemskerk of the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs, and I deal with European industrial policy. What I think is what we're overlooking right here is venues where large numbers of SMEs come together to really sniff up new technologies, and those are, in Germany, for instance, is the I4MS. In the Netherlands is the ESEF, the European Subcontractors and Engineering Forum or something. And virtually any country has those kind of activities. Additionally, I don't think we should reach out to all the SMEs, because in the end you should go for the SMEs that are really open for new development. So you have the innovators, typically those would already know and would know their way around, but then you have the early adopters and maybe the early majority, the same kind of graph that Max showed in his presentation. So go for those kind of companies, and they typically go to those kind of fairs. If during those kind of fairs you would have a showcase on what kind of savings can be made, what kind of options there are, etc., you already reach a fair number of people. Another option would be a so-called speed dating session, organized speed dating sessions where companies, organizations, etc., can meet each other. You talk 5 minutes with each other, or maybe 7 minutes, and then you switch over to a different place. And I've seen that happening in an industrial field, and that it really works. So if you want to learn about it, I can share you the experience. But so that I think is a very good way to work it and reach those SMEs. Then about the mentorship, I think we should really look into the database of smart specialization, see what the programs are of those different regions that use their cohesion funds and really want to go big time into a certain area, and then see what match can be found within Europe from different companies. There are all kind of possibilities there.
Okay, thank you. Sylvia, have you tried speed dating? Not personally, but in the I4MS context.
Actually, I did once, and it was kind of company speed dating. But it was not very good because the companies that were there had nothing to do one with the other. So yeah, it was not very successful. And we had some kind of speed dating in a manufacture event in Vilnius. It was something like that as well. It was okay. I mean, it's a good way of, I think it's a good way of knowing if you don't have to speak anymore with that person because you only spend 7 minutes and you don't go back. Mm-hmm. So that's...
I mean, in this case of the conference, the good thing was that in advance, weeks in advance, you could already, you put up your profile and you look for other people. So it was online matchmaking during 6 weeks before the conference was organized.
Okay, thank you. In light of time, any final concluding remarks or recommendations in terms of how to take this forward from any of you? Yes?
I have my second recommendation now ready.
Okay.
I mean, when we talk about smart specialization and using regional money, my fear is always that what happens often is that the usual suspect get this money, and if you look at the regional funds, it's part of the nature of the game. It's the big energy companies, it's very large companies which have a tradition to work with the state, who have the ability to tap this money. I mean, what we could maybe set as a target to say, well, let's try to aim at 10% or 15% that this funding goes to manufacturing SMEs or manufacturing industry in general. So kind of to set a target like this, people are obliged to look into the statistics. I never saw statistics, for example, where the regional funding, to which sectors it went. So I think an analysis of this with a target, since now every politician would agree manufacturing is important, so to set such a target maybe.
Okay. Other final concluding remarks, comments? Paul?
Maybe just one thought I had. The question was raised a few times. How do you reach really all SMEs? I think you're talking then mainly not only about the early adopters, but especially the, how do we call it in the spreadsheet? It was the early majority. Mm-hmm. So I4MS had as first priority early adopters and then early majority. Maybe phase 2 you should turn it around. Otherwise you will never get to the broad range of SMEs.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for joining us here. And then before handing over to Max, this concludes my part of the day before Max is going to give some final words to you. Now, this morning I almost threatened you that I would start singing if the people ran over time. I didn't do that, and I won't do that. But actually, if I look at the examples today, sometimes I see European projects, and it reminds me a little bit of Elvis Presley. And he used to sing a little less conversation, a little more action. So what I saw today is indeed less conversation, more action of inspiring stories of SMEs having used the support of I4MS to make tangible examples. And I think that's the kind of practical initiative and practical leadership that helps in really take Europe forward in showing industrial leadership. And I think it would be a great example if we're able to leverage this to further expand this and to get more of these examples. Max, thank you very much. And final words for you.
Well, let me draw some conclusions. I've taken some notes. It will not take long, 5 minutes. So you're out very soon. I think we had a long day. We had a long week, I must say. I had meetings from Wednesday to Friday. Every minute was full, and we are in Friday afternoon. So phase 1 of I4MS for me shows that we have first real results that we could show, and the results have spoken for themselves. So we have proven that at least some of this scheme works. Now, second, we got attention, and you see that here, from regions, from national programs, not only from the actors itself, but we have others here who were interested, who were partially interested, part of the meeting, who were here all the day. So, yes, there is something happening. We got political attention. You saw that with that Commissioner Oettinger brought in. We see that in the discussions we have with the member states who were here yesterday, who we discussed with today. Phase 2 is in the pipe. We are starting it. We have some idea how to broaden the ecosystem. So we'll work on that. And clearly, I think, Paul, what you said on that we look into the smart specialization strategy, that's clear. We do that. Nevertheless, we will not be in the way that we go and say, we want you, but we would maybe go to these people and say there is an opportunity, but we would have to make it open, obviously. Yeah? But yes, this is the basis for everything there. Now, in terms of large companies, just a couple of comments. Large companies have a role to play. They have a strong role to play. For me, they can drive the digital transformation. Like if big actors, like the big manufacturers of cars, of aerospace, adopt a certain platform and agree with all their suppliers and around to use it, this platform will be adopted. And then the SMEs, the suppliers, have some guidance on what to work on. So I think the big manufacturers have a big role to play in this. This can be at the same time also for technology providers. Let's say the microelectronic manufacturers, if they deploy a certain platform for a lot of their products, that will give guidance to others who want to give small components in it. So I think they have a big role to play, and it's important that they are involved in the experiment and at a higher level. Now, I also think that we have seen that SMEs do not just need money. I think what we have seen here and what we saw cases of is that they need the competences. So that distinguishes this program from the SME program that we have, where we give money to SMEs to innovate. That's one thing. But the SMEs need, here they get money directly, and in terms of that, in addition, they get competences and they get advice. And I think this combination is the important thing, and networking. The combination is the important thing that we can offer in such a program. Nevertheless, we have to look also, what is this program for? And there I would buy into what you have said. We have the early adopters and we have the early majority, and we have to distinguish here. We are an innovation program, so we can really fund highly innovative experiments. We can then disseminate results of what we have achieved and tell others do it as well, do best practice, so the early majority. But we cannot pay them all for doing that, yeah, because we have no money for that. So if I pick up and just on the spot mature this idea of roadshows a bit, in a roadshow, yes, we could go on a roadshow across Europe and show what we have achieved. We could say we look for new, very innovative experiments in a certain area, but we would need to team up locally with the experts, with the competencies who can help those who just want to replicate, who want to do the same thing in their company, but where we could not give European research and innovation program money because we just don't have it. That's not available. So we have to, and that shows what kind of added value European programs can give on top of what the national initiatives and the national programs, the national innovation systems, maybe access to finance, venture capital, and whatever is available can do. And there's a whole puzzle of things that are available. But with this program, we cannot help every single SME in Europe in their digital transformation. We can give examples, but we cannot fund everybody through that. So we have to be careful that with a roadshow, we don't create over-expectation that we go and suddenly we get 2,000 proposals and we can fund 10 of them. Then we're in the same situation as we were in some of our calls where we select 5 out of 130 proposals. So we would just depress people. So we have to find the right balance there. Now, last, before I thank, now in Berlin last year, we talked about how we could expand this. We have grown these ideas and we have at the same time shown that the concept worked. Now here, we have discussed some concrete actions how we can make it happen. So I hope on the next event, next year, we can demonstrate some showcases how we get less developed regions, how we get innovation hubs link to I4MS. Maybe in 1 year, maybe with the Dutch presidency in Amsterdam, we can show a couple of first cases, showcases, because I think the real important thing is if we want to grow this, that we get showcases where also combination of funding, for example, with structural fund, where it works, because we commission and the constituency, we talk a lot about it. I think we have to make it happen. And so maybe with this kind of scheme that I presented, we can try to make it happen in a number of cases, not in 200 cases, but in a small number so that we can show it happens. And then it would probably grow automatically. So finally, let me thank all the organizers of this event. I don't name them again personally, as I did this morning. Let me thank all the projects who contributed with all their ideas, and my colleagues, everybody. And I think it was a good event, and I wish you a good trip home. Thank you.